Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Uranium Energy. It is time for another update, and on this chart we have managed to break the relevant levels of resistance we provided in the previous video for a signal that a more substantial bottom could be in place within the smaller time frame. But this does not mean we are going to have a certain breakout, so we need to watch for the next levels of support for a potential reversal in continuation to higher prices. Now, before we move into the smaller time frame and outline all those details, I would like to provide the context for any of you who might be new. And on this chart, we are still facing a significant risk that a more substantial top would be in place within one of two interpretations, where we don't really need to extend any higher, and even though it is a possibility, it is not a requirement. So here we have been tracking basically a series of 1-2 setups within this structure, yeah? With this latest push to the upside being yet another 1-2 setup. And to be clear, we would have all the waves necessary to consider a top in place within this structure, and we could already be looking for the wave 2 correction into the area of support between the $10.8 level all the way down to $5.5, where as long as we are still holding the 78.6% retracement, the probabilities of this structure remain as strong as they can be, and we would be able to still follow up on the idea of a wave 3 to already be unfolding. However, since we didn't manage to already create a wave 3 in a more direct fashion in this structure, we need to come to terms with a risk of having a larger wave 1 to the upside to have a top in place in one of the more bullish scenarios, if you may even consider that, instead of having this as a series of 1-2 setups where, yeah, this could have been a wave 1 top here, and then we would be looking at a wave 2 correction where the area of support would only start at $4.3. We provided this area in the previous video, mentioning that from now on this will stay on the chart for the reminder that this structure has multiple paths. It doesn't need to continue to higher prices within the white interpretation we are tracking, and this blue structure, this blue scenario could just as well have here a wave 1 top instead, and would be looking for a wave 2 correction to much deeper levels. Nonetheless, we are still able to look for this white interpretation to work out. We are still able to look even for an extension of this structure within either scenario, really. And here we have been tracking this idea of a 5-wave pattern within a diagonal structure, where in the wave 5 we have been looking for an A, B, C structure to unfold, where we didn't necessarily get the last leg to the upside we were looking for. It failed to fulfill those expectations, but it did overall complete a wave 5. We cannot really be too picky, and even before actually looking for this structure to form here, this movement to the upside, we have been considering that perhaps the beginning of the wave C would have been here instead. Yeah, I mentioned this even before we completed this structure, that this is a realistic possibility, in which case a top was already applicable, and this is what I'm considering in the case of this structure as an ABC movement. And right now I would be looking still at this pattern to be able to extend higher, although this is not a high probability expectation, and with a break below $11.6 it would be already quite a strong indication that a much more substantial top would be in place here, where, yeah, either we have the larger wave 2 in white already forming, or potentially even the larger wave 2 in the blue structure, if not something even more bearish. No reason to really focus on even more bearish structures at the moment. I believe this is plenty. And by the way, if you enjoyed this video, leaving a like would be greatly appreciated. And if you want to keep up to date with all of these roadmaps we provide for various assets, various stocks, I would highly recommend that you subscribe, as we post multiple videos every single day outlining such opportunities, And if you enjoy our content and want to support us directly, you can check out our channel membership, and as a thank you for any of these actions, I would even invite you to sign up to our channel newsletter where you get access to our monthly top picks where we identify for you high quality structures. We make a concise watch list for you to use throughout the month to follow along with us, and it is completely free anyway. It doesn't actually cost you anything to sign up and get this monthly email with this data. Now, getting back to the chart, within this structure, we have been tracking the internal pattern, and it has been quite a strong indication already that this would see extensions since forming here an initial 5-wave move to the downside that was telling us that after a 3-wave correction into the area of resistance up to $18.9, we would very likely see yet another extension, yet another 5-wave move to the downside in a wave C. And interestingly enough, we did extend within this wave C, and that's not the interesting part, but rather that we would have heavily preferred to get another low within this wave C to have a more clearly complete pattern that would have actually been even beneficial. It would have allowed a more clear structure overall. But since the previous video, we have actually broken the $14.3 level, the last level of resistance for such an expectation. And now we actually kind of have to assume that a more substantial bottom within the wave C would be in place. Or we might even need to consider this to have been a 1 down here, a wave 2 up here, and then this would have been a wave 3 down here, wave 4 up, and a wave 5 to the downside. That is a valid interpretation. Not the prettiest, the structure would have looked better with one additional low, but at this point, with the area of resistance broken, I would have to either assume that the wave C has bottomed, or that this would have been a wave 1, part of a larger wave C to the downside, where we could very easily head from this region into the white area of support within such a wave C. Now, since we have broken this level of resistance, we can actually look for the next one, and we are always looking for the next levels of resistance because those also provide indications when broken that something potentially more bullish would be going on. For example, breaking the 61.8% retracement right now is telling us that we wouldn't be looking for this wave C to extend to even lower prices within a wave 5. So, currently I would focus here on the 78.6% retracement level. So we are talking about $15.7. This is what we want to see broken for a signal that a more substantial bottom would be in place, that likely, very likely, this entire wave to the downside would be complete at the very least. And even if we do not get a wave C to higher prices in this green interpretation, we would at the very least get a stronger relief rally, and with a break above the previous wave B swing high in yellow, this idea of an extension of this wave C to lower prices would be completely invalidated. And to be clear, I do see even other options of tracking this pattern to the downside. I am personally extremely skeptical of this wave C forming to the upside in green. The probabilities aren't in its favor in my opinion. But this structure to the downside can actually be tracked as a full 5-wave pattern within a leading diagonal. So you see, I could be looking at this to have been a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. This is actually also a perfectly valid interpretation. And yes, we are strongly indicated by the chart structure that the pressure remains to extend to lower prices. And this doesn't mean we need to do this in a direct fashion, but it means that we need to be extremely aware of the relevant levels of resistance for such expectations. Now, as you can notice, the 50% retracement and the 38.2% retracement for a larger 1-2 setup in this area are pretty much in line with the 61.8% retracement and the 78.6% retracement within the smaller time frame structure. Now, in the smaller time frame, we will be tracking this idea of a 1-2 setup, let's say within the yellow interpretation, where this wave C could extend even lower. We will track direct extension to higher prices in a wave C in green, and this idea in a larger 1-2 setup will be tracked in an orange interpretation, where we would be looking for this to have been instead a wave 1 down. We would be looking for a wave 2 to the upside, And in this case, I would actually strongly prefer that we get at least one more high within this structure before looking for continuation to even lower prices. In the end, it will be extremely difficult on this chart to be a believer of this wave C to the upside in green unless, or rather until, we break the $18.2 level at the 78.6% retracement. Now, in addition to that, we also have some structural resistance here at the 61.8% retracement in orange, $16.7, and here the previous wave 3 swing high at nearly $18 is also going to be more difficult to break, yeah? Basically, this entire region between $16.7 up to $18.2 is going to be rather difficult to get through. Now, in the smaller time frame, and I want to change the degree for this, I am looking for even a potential initial 5-wave move to the upside. So, you see, even though this structure hasn't formed the nicest pattern, the nicest movement to the upside, I am still able to consider it such a possible pattern, yeah? I will warn you, this is not a high probability structure. Be aware of that if you intend to use this area of support, as I could just as well track this as an A, B, C pattern that would have been a 3-wave correction, possibly within this wave 2 in yellow complete, which wouldn't need extensions to higher prices. But if I were to look for a potential entry within such a structure, and not only that, this is also within an extremely small time frame, but if I were to look for a support zone for such a structure, I would be watching here the levels between $14 down to $12.8, where technically, as long as we hold the 78.6% retracement, we could still be looking for the reversal to higher prices. And if this were to be a more clearly defined initial 5-wave move to the upside, we would have expected with high probabilities, in fact, that after a 3-wave correction, we would be looking for at least another 5-wave move in trend continuation. But not only that, it actually gets even worse, because within this movement, we might be looking currently at an initial 5-wave move to the downside internally. This is actually within a very small time frame, yeah, 1 degree smaller, but this pattern would be suggesting that, yes, we would be looking potentially for at least an A, B, C correction that would allow at least an extension, a reset of this wave 2 in green that currently has a bottom at around $13.5. So we are certainly within a difficult pattern, within a difficult structure, and with a break below $12.8, it would be a decently high risk that we would get a complete reset at the very, very least of this previous swing low, if not something more bearish, which could be considered to be even indicated by something like this yellow structure. So really the only positive aspect of this entire structure, besides having a potential 5-wave pattern, it's not a reliable one, is that we would be fairly deep within levels of support. Yeah, we would have pretty clear levels of invalidation, but really only with extremely proper risk management can someone really look for a position in this area. And for now, I can provide you even an internal area of resistance, so I would be watching up to $14.8, where a break above that would signal that this green interpretation might have a chance in pushing to higher prices. Although one extremely fair warning is that within this structure, we could be looking to extend to higher prices within both the yellow wave 2, yeah, that could get a reset up to $15.7, or at least within the orange wave 2 in what could be very easily a larger A, B, C structure, right? Now, if this is to have a bottom in this internal correction, the ideal target for a wave 3 would be the 138.2% extension of the wave 1, $18.2, and if this is to be a wave C, well, the ideal target sits at the 100% extension, very much in line with our structural resistance at the 61.8% retracement. So, for a recap, this is an extremely weak structure in terms of the probabilities to extend within a wave C to all-time highs, yeah? this pattern does allow to push higher within a couple of interpretations into a larger resistance area, but it doesn't have the most clear initial 5-week move to the upside to suggest this to actually be a high probability. With the break below $12.8, we would be looking at the very least for a reset of this wave B. That would be the preferred interpretation at that point. And with a break of $11.6, well, at least the larger wave 2 in white would already be unfolding, if not something even more bearish. And honestly, even this wave 2 in white could take us as low as $5.5. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you enjoy our content and want to support us directly, check out our channel membership. And other than that, let me know what else you would like me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.